French Grand Prix at Le Mans. What a mega round. Mega round of just like every race of the weekend was awesome. I was lucky enough to be there on Sunday. It was a really great day. There will be a video of that coming with my whole experience of attending the Grand Prix. Is it what people say it is? I mean, spoiler alert, probably is. I had an absolutely brilliant time. And yeah, back in Manchester now. We got back yesterday. I've just rewatched all the races, so they're fresh in my mind. And we've got like a lot to talk about here. A lot of stuff unfolding that impacts us further down the line with a lot of key decisions to be made and how things are going to play out for the rest of the season. Everything is chaptered below. You can skip ahead to anything you want to hear about down below. We are starting this time in MotoGP. And we're just going to do this week by just sort of working through the riders rather than talking about the races individually. And we'll start with Jorge Martin because he is absolutely the story of the weekend. He does take a 38-point lead now. And after his DNF in Jerez, you thought maybe was that going to swing back to Pecco a little bit? Has he got enough to answer? Yeah. Can he turn it around? And oh boy, what a weekend for him. He in the end cruised to victory in the sprint, and then really like the pressure that he came under there is the pressure that he crashed under in Jerez, and he stood up to it this time, which is a big thing, I think. When you can start to, well, first of all, he's had to come past Bagnaia. He's had to line that up. And as we head on to the last lap, it almost started to look all of a sudden like Pecco was the more comfortable. And maybe that pressure was setting in. But then, we're going to talk about the overtake in a bit with Marc. The point being, Martin He's under that pressure from Pecco. Pecco's looking good. He's right behind him. Like, you're going to know he's right there. He's tried to get underneath him a little bit at La Chapelle. Door closed on him, Pecco. And so he knows that Pecco's right there, and he's just pushed on. And maybe an assist from Marc there with him trying to get what he can out of the race. But it was either going to be a move from Pecco at some point on Martin or a move from Marquez on Pecco. And we got the move from Marquez on Pecco, which, because it was from so far back, it actually created a bit of a gap because he had to really hold him up in the mid-corner. Martin's home then, and geez, fair play to him. What did I say? 38-point lead over Pecco, which makes it how many points back? An extra 2 points back to Marc and Enea Bastianini. Hard amount of points to make up. At 38 points now, we are beyond a double race win weekend for someone. So Martin has 2 DNFs somehow at Catalunya. Is beyond him losing the championship lead now for anyone chasing. So even a double win from Pecco and a double DNF from Martin would still have Martin in the lead. So when you're getting to that range, all of a sudden, there's less pressure on you to have to go and win the next Grand Prix if it's maybe just beyond you. I mean, you still want to be driving that home, but he can take a couple of second places here or thirds or whatever and just manage now, just try and manage the gap. And so with Marc, he turned this from what was potentially a bit of a dodgy weekend for him after qualifying poorly. And there was a real chance here that when you bog yourself down in the group like that on a circuit like this where it can be a bit almost dangerous being in the mid-pack as you approach through that turn 1, 2, 3 section there into the chicane. Things can happen even as you get further around the lap into Garage Vert. It can tighten up a lot and you can get in a bit of trouble. But his start, he was fifth by the time we were coming out of La Chapelle on the first lap. So he got himself way out there. And then there was so much happening in every race. And we've had long lap penalties, a lot of guys going down, just a lot happening, right? And he's carved his way through that and picking up on some issues like, Bez going down in that sprint, things like that, putting him up to second place and then a second again in the Grand Prix on Sunday. And tell you what, last weekend, I'll link to the video here. I called into question Marc's racecraft and his sometimes over-eagerness to make a move when it's not on. As he's starting to make ground on Pecco for this move, I'm like, he's doing it again. But somehow he's got it pulled up and into the apex and just taken a clean line with that pass. And I mentioned after the last Grand Prix that I thought Pecco's pass around the outside, first lap I think it was, my overtake of the season so far. This is now my overtake of the season. Like, it just wasn't on. It just wasn't on. And something makes you wonder there about how he's almost been able to take a normal line but break that deep, and the other two haven't done that. Were they a bit conservative there? Were they a bit cautious, last lap nerves? I do think Pecco's been caught sleeping at the wheel there. Didn't cover any of the inside line at all. Of course, because Marc was so far back, probably didn't think he had to. And I think a little bit of it was Pecco is maybe trying to line up something later on, thinking like slow in, fast out, if you know what I mean. Try and get a better line than Martin, line him up into maybe the next one if you can close that ground up rather than just trying to break deep, go too deep into the chicane. And I think because he's maybe lining that up there or trying to do that, or there's got to be a reason he wasn't deeper on the brakes and trying to cover the inside line a little bit. Because he wasn't even attacking Martin there. I think, look, all speculation on my part, but is he trying to get a bit of a slow in, fast out to give him a chance at attacking Martin into the final few corners? Maybe. And Mark's just mugged him off. Just absolutely mugged him off. It was like he just thought to himself, and actually, there is a precedent for this move from Marc, because earlier in the race, and I'm talking first half of the race, maybe lap 9 or 10, he does something very similar. He goes so deep into that corner and must go past two of them. I can't remember. Let me go back and have a look. He makes a huge move down into there. Yeah, he goes past Espargaro. 17 laps to go, I've got it out here, from a long way back, and pulls it up on the apex again, exactly the same, and just leaves Aleix wide in the corner. So he knew that he was capable of that move, braking that late and still getting it pulled up to the corner. Now, in fairness, at that point of the race, tyres are still pretty fresh. He's probably taking a bit of a chance doing it that late in the race when your tyres are a bit worn, but I think he just knows that move's on for him. From that far back, I think he knew that move was on because he'd done it earlier in the race. Brilliant. And look, he's made me look a bit silly. I did call him to question his racecraft, like I mentioned, and his over-eagerness to make moves, and he's made me look a bit silly there because that was perfect. Absolutely perfect. He played his hand absolutely perfectly. It wasn't an out-of-control move like it usually is from Marc. It was just all in control, all wheels in a line, pulled it up for the apex, and left Pecco with absolutely no rebuttal. And with Pecco, he has left himself languishing a little bit in the championship standings, especially after his DNF in the sprint. A little suggestion on commentary when I've watched it back that there was maybe an issue. They suspected maybe an issue with the bike. I don't know if I've not read anything since then or heard anything since then, so I don't know if he's just had an absolute mare. Didn't get off the line, and then it all went wrong for him. I thought he had a good race in the Grand Prix. He tried to control it from the front. Martin got by him, and I think, like I said, I think he was thinking of lining something up there and just didn't expect Marc to come from that far back. So will he be super disappointed? No, he's had to maybe just take his medicine there and just make sure he gets a podium. And look, it didn't even go for that move for Marc into the final corner. It probably wasn't on if he did go for it. But in those situations, you do see these guys often, like, just put it up the inside, let him hit you or something, force him out there, But it just, I guess Pecco's probably thinking, if this goes wrong, and Marc won't let it go easy, if this goes wrong, I'm out again of another Grand Prix, and then it's gone. It's almost already gone. So with the way Martin's riding. So I think he's just had to take his medicine and just have what was on offer for him there and just maybe try again next week, because I think he just wasn't, I think he was maybe going to be like, if I can line something up for a pass into this last chicane, he was probably going to try and line that up. And then when Marc came up the inside of him, that was it. Martin had won the race. The gap had opened up, and it was only if he could get Marquez back, and it was just maybe a bit too dangerous, a bit too risky. And as we look back through the field here, I mean, like I said, it was just an incredible day of racing. The Grand Prix was brilliant, and like I go on and on, like we just had everything happen. And we're going to, as we get through the next group of riders and then go into a few other topics, we will cover it all. And as I look just through a few other riders' names I got written down, Marco Bezzecchi, did he have challenging pace in the sprint? Potentially. He certainly had podium pace. Could he have carried that pace into Sunday? He was bogged down a little bit on Sunday, so we don't know if he maybe would have done like Bestia did and just made his way up until sort of a fourth, fifth, maybe challenging for a podium. You don't know. Did he have that pace? Possibly. But 2 crashes over the weekend, and is this one of those ones where it's like, look, would you feel like I had the pace? It's a good step. It's a good sign. We're not in any title fights this year anyway, so the best thing to show is that we just have the pace, and a couple of crashes, look, it happens. Or is it big missed opportunity? We need to, is this a bad sign? He's quick enough, but he's crashing? Or is it just at least good enough that he's being quick enough to be in a position to challenge this weekend? Something only he can answer and his team. But the pace was there for him, I thought. The pace was there for him at the very least. Another guy who had the pace, and I really thought there really would have been a podium challenge on for him this weekend, was Pedro Acosta on Sunday. Just looked so good. I mean, it didn't last long in the race. He didn't last long, but he just looked so good. And just asked too much of it. He just asked too much of it. And how with that crash, he's avoided all contact. Last time I saw anything like that where a bike split 2 bikes like that was the famous Morbidelli, Austria, when his bike went flying in between Rossi and whoever, and it's just gone straight past his face. Then the bikes went flying across the track. Obviously not to that level, this one, but the way he's just perfectly, the width of, the length of bike between Diggia and, it might have been Aleix or someone, and this bike just gone straight in between them. It's actually pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool. Hard to do that. But his pace was good, and I thought there was a podium challenge within him on Sunday. So it's a shame he went down. Another good weekend there. Fabio Di Gianantonio. Diggia had a really good weekend. A nice little return to form for him because he has been maybe a touch out of sorts. He's been okay. He's been there or thereabouts. But certainly not his end of season form from last season, which we don't know where it came from, and now we don't really know where it's gone. 6th with a long lap on Sunday, 7th Saturday, so that's not bad, and qualified on the second row, front of the second row. So I think that's a really good weekend for him. And my favourite part of his whole weekend was just when he just had that scrap with Marc and just did not let it go. It's like a dog with a bone in there. He was like, nah, you're not having it. I thought it was a brilliant little scrap. Bit of Rossi heritage for him there. Just show him the boss that, I'll fight Marc for you. Don't worry about it. Really, really good bit of work from him and Marc. And they, it was a great battle. They avoided contact. It was a great little scrap. And obviously Marc just had the pace in the end to ride away from him. And we're going to talk about his long lap penalty later because I've got stewarding written down as a topic to talk about today, so we are going to get to that. Last name I've got written down is Enea Bastianini, and this ties in with our who's going to get the Ducati seat chat. Bastianini, the least likely at this point you'd think to get that seat, the factory seat in the factory team, based on his performance. He's very much 4th, 5th kind of runner at the moment, 4th, 5th, 6th, 2 4ths this weekend. Yeah, and like a 5th in Jerez. So he is in about that place right now. And he's an interesting case because, I mean, if you want my opinion on this, who gets it if you had to give it out right now? Maybe controversial one because I think most people just think you'd give it to Marc because he is the biggest name. He's the big champ. He's probably as likely. Yeah, do you give it to him on his record and his past? I think that's a lot of people's view. You just give it to the best rider. It's Marc. He's one of the best riders of all time. So I'm probably Team Martin at the moment. After a couple of weeks ago, after Martin had his crash, I was like, do you just keep it steady with Bestia? He's probably a perfect number 2 for Pecco at the moment if you're trying to keep harmony, but you don't want to lose these riders to other manufacturers. So you do have to probably promote one of them based on what you're seeing at the moment. So I would have no issues with them keeping Bastianini, by the way. I think if I was in charge, I'd probably give it to Martin because if he's leading the championship by 40 points by the time we get to Mugello, you've got to put the contract in front of it. I just can't see how you can't. It'd be one of the biggest injustices in MotoGP in a long while, I think, in terms of rider movements and either keeping or scrapping riders. It would be just, you'll never seen anything like it where a rider's been that good and not got the job. But then obviously that's the Marc factor. It's like, do you just give it to Marc because he's Marc? Because he's a proven world champion and is a very real chance to deliver your world title on that bike for the factory team. And he could beat you from another team if you don't give him the bike. Is that a problem for Ducati? It might be from within. Maybe they wouldn't like that. Would they care? I mean, I don't know. You have to ask them. So I think the most likely scenario at this point is to put Martin into the factory team so you don't lose him because he wants a factory rider. He said that. He's not going to settle for anything less. In terms of the factory team, not just a factory bike. He wants a factory team. If Marc's happy and just enjoying himself and he's just turning around to you going, look, I don't care who you put me with, who's around me, which colour I'm wearing. As long as you give me the latest bike, I'm going to be chuffed. And if he's happy there with his brother, crack on. Maybe that's a good solution for them. And then Bastianini, you might have to risk losing him or moving him back to. If Pramac stay Ducati, you can put him in there on a factory bike, whatever. If he'd be willing to do that, I don't know. If that would mean that he'd listen to the offers from somewhere else, so be it. But that's, I think, if you had to do it right now, I think that's the happiest circumstance for everyone. And Martin, how can you have a guy come second in the World Championship last year and almost beating you, and then currently beating you this year by quite a bit, and then not give him the job? It would be, I think, a strange thing to do. But again, it is Marc Marquez we're talking about, who's the other option. So put Bestia's case forward based on this weekend. He's finished 4th there, 2.2 seconds off the lead. So we have him about off the podium, about, that Marquez Bagnaia battle, 1.7 seconds. What's the time loss for a long lap penalty at Le Mans? Couple of seconds? 1. I don't know how long it takes, what their time loss is. It's usually around a couple of seconds, isn't it? At most places. Maybe it's a bit less at Le Mans. They were getting through it pretty quickly and they weren't losing that much time through there, to be fair. So maybe it's a second and a half. Is this just the kind of thing where Bastianini at the moment is on their level? Pecco, Marc, and Martin. He should be in that fight, but things are happening that are just keeping him away from it. And he tied for 3rd in the World Championship. So he's on the same amount of points as Marc here. So are we writing him off too early? I still think there's something there with him. I think if he can go out now, I think to get the job, he needs to win the next 2 races. I think he has to. Otherwise, he's not getting it. Or at least one of them. But there's a very real chance here with a rider like him who has that race winning ability and that late race pace to just sometimes he feels like he's not in. Like here, he's come from like 7th or 8th on the opening laps, copped a long lap and finished a second and a half behind Pecco. I think he's there. And if he goes on one of these runs like he did the year before when he was at Cressini, the year before last, if he goes on one of these runs where he picks up 2 or 3 wins later in the year and they've already announced he's, lost the ride, I think there's a really big chance that Anea could do something like that. That's all I'm saying here. They're not in a great position, Ducati. They are in a great position, but they're kind of not. It's very easy to make the wrong decision here. It's going to be one of those ones where we all look back on hindsight, which are whatever they do, and we're going to be able to go, well, you should have done that. Based on what you know right now, like I said, you'd probably give it to Martin. Try and keep Marc happy with a factory bike at Cressini or whatever. And if you can keep Pramac, we know there's talk of them going to Yamaha, but if you keep Pramac as Ducati, could you convince Bestia to go there and not lose him to another manufacturer? Best case scenario for everyone. I think that's how you'd have to do it. If you called it right now, yes. Now, like I said, Bastianini can turn this around if he goes and wins. Like I said, it's a big ask. It is a big ask. Can you win the next 2 Grand Prix to keep your ride? Maybe if he just wins one of them. And he's still kind of only a couple of points behind Pecco. If he's there with Marc, if he maybe closes the gap to Martin in points a little bit. Like, I don't think he's that far off. I honestly think he's a threat on Sunday if he doesn't have that long lap. It just seems like he was never in the battle because he's a late race guy. He's not there all the time. He comes towards the front later in the race. And because he never made it to that battle because of the long lap, it just seems like he was never in this Grand Prix. But I'm telling you, he probably could have been and should have been. But anyway, tell me what you think about that. And I've gone on about that for a while here, this video. But this is a really fascinating aspect to the way the season's playing out, I think. And if we're going to get a decision from Ducati by Mugello or just after Mugello, it could be one of those hindsight decisions that can hurt you, I think. But we'll see how they go. Okay, long video this week. Into the fun stuff. The All Japan Cup. The All Japan Cup. Oh, sorry, before we do that, the one last thing I wanted to mention, and I've got them written down here on the side. I forgot to write them down earlier. Trackhouse. I mean, Oliveira didn't finish on Sunday, but Raul Fernandez, 11th, and he qualified well, Oliveira as well in 12th into Q2. But Raul Fernandez picking up a point in the sprint, really good ride from him, and then Oliveira was 11th in that one. Yeah, in the Grand Prix, 11th for Raul Fernandez, so a nice little chunk of points for him, and unfortunately Oliveira DNF, but he was running well from memory. I'd have to maybe go back and check that. Maybe it wasn't. But yeah, I just wanted to mention them. Really good weekend for them. And after going to the Grand Prix this year, it's the first time for me I've had a chance to see all the merch from this year. And I like their merch the best. Their merch is great. It's kind of like t-shirts and hoodies and stuff that I just wear down the street on a normal day. Sometimes I think MotoGP merch can be a little bit tacky and stuff like that. It's very colourful and bright. It's like big swooshes on them and the numbers are all big. It's just the way it is. Very classy, kind of nice, plain white t-shirt with a nice logo on the corner here and, a little Trackhouse racing garage, thing on the back. It's white t-shirt kind of thing I'd wear. Kind of thing I'd wear on a day-to-day. Really cool stuff. I just want to point that out there. I just think they have the nicest merch. Anyway, off to the All Japan Cup. Interesting one because Fabio Quartararo put in the race of the season. Would have been the performance of the season from almost anyone if he'd managed to pull this off and finish in the top 6. But was very close to winning his All Japan Cup Grand Prix in his home race and didn't. But Johann Zarco, first All Japan Cup win of the season for Johann, and it's his home race. He'll be chuffed with that. And 12th on the track. So really good result from him. Finished ahead of Augusto Fernandez. That'll be promising. Only a couple of seconds behind Raul Fernandez. Honda with a bit of improvement there, maybe. Good day for them. So it ended anyway. The whole results for the All Japan Cup French Grand Prix edition. Zarco first, Taka second, Rins third, Marini fourth, and DNFs Fabio and Mir, who were running the highest of all of them. So it could have easily been them two extending their lead at the top of the All Japan Cup. But now it's tightened up a little bit. The standings at Fabio and Mir have added no points, like I mentioned. So Fabio on 33 points, Mir on 20. Zarco goes to third with a big chunk of 10 points there to go to 18 points. Rins is fourth on 17. Taka fifth on 15. So it's all tight through there. And Marini still yet to pick up a real World Championship point, but he's got 12 All Japan Cup points. Good on you, Luca. That's very good. And then Bradl, obviously, with his one race, he's on 2 points. The All Japan Cup tightening up a little bit, maybe. Mir will be spewing that he's not being able to pick up the win there because he really could have closed it up to a 3-point gap if he picked up 10 points there. But, is what it is. He'll have to come back in Catalonia, see what we can do. But they looked like, with Mir running where he was and with Fabio, it might have just been an out-of-his-skin French Grand Prix performance from him. But it looks like they've made a little bit of ground there. There's a little bit of help. Obviously getting a bit of extra testing again now after this Grand Prix. I believe Taka Nakagami was testing in somewhere. Was he in Mugello? I think he was in Mugello. So hopefully they can make a few more gains there. That's the All Japan Cup for another week. Steward Watch. Let's go to Steward Watch, because this is one of those races where it frustrates the hell out of me, because there's chicanes in it that are all just like tarmacs. If you cut them and you don't lose enough time, not just lose time, but not lose enough time, then you get a long lap penalty. Like I said, it wasn't the longest long lap penalty here. It seemed like they were getting through it pretty quick. It could have been like the 2.5 loss. Time loss there, maybe. It was a short long lap. I felt like it was anyway. They were really ripping through it. So we saw a penalty for Bastianini, like I mentioned earlier, long lap penalty for his incident with Aleix Espargaro, where there was no contact. I at first thought, what a strange decision, and then I saw he did actually cut the chicane, and I would hope his penalty was for cutting the chicane and not for forcing Aleix off the track there with absolutely no. All he did was sit him up, and Aleix decided to go straight. Maybe he had to, I don't know. It was a move from a long way back. It probably wasn't on, but the point is there's no touching. So I'm hoping that penalty was for cutting the chicane. Please make it that. A slightly more contentious one is, for me, the Diggi one. Now, Diggi goes through the chicane. He goes for a move, goes too deep, goes through the chicane. As he's halfway through the chicane, he sits up, looks around, and lets the 2 riders go past him. So not only is he given back the one place for the place he took, I think he's then dropped in behind, it must have been Espargaro there. And it just looked like he lost heaps of time to both of them and ended up well behind them. Now, this is one of those things where they're like, oh, get the stopwatch out, you know, oh, he's got entered the chicane there, entered out there, and his usual lap time, his time through that sector is this time. And he's not lost enough time. Is there a point where, like, I know they struggle with actual decision making, these guys. So anything that they can make as black and white as possible, like, did you touch the green, or did you lose X amount of time compared to your average lap time? And they can go, oh, thank God, I don't have to make an actual decision. It's not a subjective decision. It's just like an objective fact. He didn't lose this much time. But in this sort of cases, he's given up 2 places. There's no way he's gained an advantage there. It doesn't make sense. It's just the sort of little things that frustrate me. There is no advantage to what he just did. Like, when is it not enough to just give the place back, 2 places back? Anyway, that frustrated me. It's that kind of thing where, because they can't trust their own decision making, they have to do these sort of things. But yeah, anyway, Steward Watch, that's Steward Watch for a week. But there was loads of long laps and stuff like that. There was more, and I can't remember how many, or maybe friends had one. I don't know what it was for. They've all cut chicanes or whatever. That's MotoGP done for this week. This was a long one, this video. Jesus, take me forever. Moto2, really well controlled by Sergio Garcia, and he's looking like he's turning himself into a proper Grand Prix rider, Sergio Garcia. And this one, like, chaos from the start. I mean, Manu Gonzalez, I want to say, just causing chaos through the chicane. Well, all through that first section, 1, 2, and 3, and just swipe the nose off a few of them, just trying to get the bike under control and get the corner under control. And by doing that and holding up the pack a little bit, he was in second. Garcia just had a gap straight away, and it never went down. That was it. Just managed it from there. Just had his pace, ticked it off, and away we went. Brilliant 1-2 finish for MT Helmers. So Ayagura's come from miles back here. Qualified in 17th place. 17th, ended up second. With another one of these guys that's like, if you could sort your qualifying out, you'd be doing what Garcia's doing there. This team's looking great. And then, you know, Alonso Lopez in 3rd, Joe Roberts in 4th, which leaves the championship standings. Garcia goes into the lead by 7 points. Bit of a swing for Joe there. He won't be happy with that, but he got beat up a couple of times. Some harsh moves on him into the last corner. He decided to serve one back in the end of the race, but couldn't hold it for 3rd place. Now, I didn't see Moto2 qualifying. Firmino Aguirre starting from 12th. We were all hyped up on this Firmino being, you know, the absolute world beater he is. He sold Ducati a dream with his last 4 races of last season. Now it's looking a little bit dodgy. Not that I don't think he's there or thereabouts, but like, he's finished 7th here. He's qualified, what did I say, 12th or something, 14th? I don't know. He's certainly given himself work to do. He's only on 63 points to Garcia's 89, so he's 26 points back. He's more than a race win back. And as good as you are, I mean, unless he goes on one of these runs again, which he may do, where he wins 4 races in a row or something stupid like that, then he's back. Right, then he's back. But it's hard to see him doing it at the moment, isn't it? One to watch, because he's not quite showing that. I mean, he's still obviously one of the best guys out there. Probably on talent, when you look at what he's done in the past, you probably still have him as the talent coming out of that class. But if Sergio Garcia keeps doing this, I wonder if they're going to someone's going to knock on his door at the halfway through the season and be like, mate, we've got a spot for you up here. Brilliant from him. And yeah, Joe Roberts still there or thereabouts. He'll be a bit disappointed this weekend that he couldn't get a podium, but his pace is there. He's there. He's there. I didn't expect him to be there, and I don't know if I expect him to stay there all season, but he's definitely there or thereabouts. I think well done for Canet this weekend. He fell off a little bit towards the end, but he's carrying an injury, so well done by him. Alonso Lopez, nice little return to form to get on the podium there as well. So yeah, entertaining race. Probably least entertaining of the races of the weekend, but still entertaining. It was good. Actually, I say that, but the scrap for second was brilliant. It was just the lead that was done and dusted by turn 3. But the scrap for second was awesome. It was a really good race, actually. As we get on to Moto3 now, this was a good race. Big lead group. We didn't get the breakaway group this time. We ended up with they just all followed each other home. There must have been more than the points finishes in the lead group right until the very end. I mean, we may have had a split from maybe 10th down. Yeah, it looks like that, yeah. Towards the end, but they were right in it until, not that long to go. It really is, the cream has risen here in this race, and I think it will stay this way for the whole season. David Alonso from Daniel Ricciardo from Colin Vaya. I think that's the class at the moment. That's Moto3 at the moment. David Alonso, again, he has this way, even when it's like, because he sat in the group 3rd or 4th, I guess, for most of the race, and he has this knack, this thing about him. Look, he had the pace all weekend, probably the quickest guy for the rest of the weekend, but in the race itself, it maybe looked like not really showing him his hand here. Maybe he doesn't have the pace, but I think he maybe was just happy to sit and wait and knew when we got to the last couple of laps, he was going to pull the trigger. And he's just got this knack of winning these in these late in races. He could just win them. When you've got a guy that has that ability, you just be like, look, he can just do it. When it gets to that point of the race, he has something that the other two don't have. What a great ride from him again. Daniel Ricciardo was good. Colin Vaya was good. Both looked to lead the race at times and control the tempo. But really, it was just waiting for Alonso to pull the trigger, wasn't it? You could feel it coming. And yeah, I think these three, it'll be just these three swapping wins all season now. It'll be these three on the podium at most Grand Prix. Ortola and stuff, they'll throw their nose in there. I'm expecting Rueda to do something by the end of the season. Maybe even like a Esteban or Precaris, but really this is the three. This one was shaken up a bit by, and we've not mentioned him yet, David Munoz, who was there all in this race. He was in it. He was in that with the three big boys. He's done a David Munoz, hasn't he? Decided to punt Riccardo Rossi off the circuit, get a long lap, lose his head, crash, and then park it. So big day, long day for David Munoz there, but he was kind of in it. But that's where I think you get guys like him who have the pace, but don't have that little bit that these three have got, where they're thinking like well thought out how they're going to position themselves to win the race and all that stuff. And I think Munoz is just reacting and just trying to I'll get him, whatever. And it's too aggressive at times, and he's just left himself a little bit disappointed here after that one. Really good race, this one again. I really enjoyed this weekend. I hope I've not missed anything because I've just been chatting for about fucking 45 minutes. Jesus. Obviously, I'm editing this down, guys, so you're only going to see. But just know that I've been sitting here for fucking ages talking to this camera. There was just too much that happened, and I had a great weekend. My video will be out later on. I don't know how long it'll take for me to get this Le Mans video out about my experience at Le Mans. Hopefully help you if you decide to go. A little travel guide style thing. Like I did one for Silverstone, you can watch there. If you're going to Silverstone later, you watch this because all the information you need is on that video. But that'll be out later on, and just know that it is a brilliant day out at Le Mans. And the town itself is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. Just go like when there's nothing on there. And just check out that like medieval old town they've got there. It's great. And we're off to the Catalan Grand Prix next. We've got the weekend off here, and we will see you then, I guess. We'll see you on the next one.